Okay, guys, y'all. After a long break that was unintentional and it was due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm back. So, y'all, what had happened was my computer that I record my podcast with, it took a nosedive. And I honestly thought it was the computer itself, but it was just the charger. And then, during the middle of getting all that figured out, my car, it also died. My son-in-law worked really hard on it, still couldn't get it running. So now I have a different vehicle. So, yeah, up until recently, it's been a real shit show around here. Sorry for the language if that offends you, but yeah, that's the only way to describe it is shit show. But so the other night, um, I had went to get the kids some food, and when I was driving back from the restaurant, I went back and I listened to all three of the episodes that I've put out so far. And in the second episode, I mentioned that the next episode, which would be episode 4, would be about my surgery. But you know what? The very next episode wasn't about that at all. It was about things that they don't tell you about weight loss surgery. And if you were wanting to hear all about my surgery, then, this episode is for you. And I do apologize. I don't know where my brain was. But like I said, this is what this episode is going to be about. So hang out with me, and I'm going to do just that. All right, y'all. Before we get started with tonight's episode, I just need to say that just so you know from the beginning, this is a one woman operation. I don't have writers or editors or sponsors, at least yet, or, any of that other fancy stuff. I write my own content, record it in my bedroom, edit it myself, and I don't make a dime off of this or my true crime podcast. It's mostly just something that I do as a hobby. Keeps me busy, okay? But be sure to check out the links in the episode description for my social media page. And I also want to add here that this is my experience, and experiences will vary. And I have learned along the way from talking to others that have went through the various forms of weight loss surgery that it does vary from surgeon to surgeon, from state to state, insurance to insurance, and patient to patient. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about my surgery. Now, I believe that I told y'all that the night before my surgery, I spent the night at my daughter's house so we could get up bright and early and head out to the hospital. Now, I had to be at the hospital at 8 that morning, and we surprisingly arrived a little early. And if you know me or my daughter, that's not something that happens hardly ever. It's a very rare occurrence. So after I got into the hospital, I had to go first through the registration area to confirm everything I had already told them. And then I went to the waiting area to wait on a pre-surgery nurse to take me back to this small hospital room to be prepped for surgery. When I got back there, they first let me, go use the restroom. And they took me to that little room and gave me a gown to put on. Did all that. And then when the nurse came back in the room, she told me that my surgeon, Dr. Love, he was running a little bit behind. But they would get me into surgery as soon as possible after he finished that surgery that was running long that morning. Now, I have to say, I really don't remember much from that point to until the time I woke up in my regular hospital room after my surgery, because I remember the nurse taking some blood, and I remember her asking me if I needed anything to calm my nerves. And at first I was like, no, I'm good, but then, you know how when you're waiting for something to get started or whatever, if there's a delay, you'd have more time to give yourself reasons to get nervous. So, I went ahead and let her give me something, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it did make me sleepy. Yeah, it knocked me out totally. It was only supposed to relax me, but it really put me under. Um, and after that, it gets really foggy. But I do remember being in the operation room, and they gave me they put the mask over my head and told me to start counting backwards. And after that, I was gone. Now, beforehand, at one of my pre-op appointments, my surgeon told me that normally my type of surgery usually takes around an hour and a half to 2 hours, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little less. But remember that part because that's going to be important. So, they do my surgery, and the next thing I know, I'm waking up in my regular hospital room. And when I woke up, it was because one of the nurses had came in to check on me. We talked for a minute, and then I noticed it was dark outside. And I looked at the clock on the wall in my room, and it said 11 something. And I looked at my nurse, and I was like, how long have I been out? And she told me that I had only been in my room since around 7 that evening because, y'all get this, I had been in surgery for a whopping 6 hours. And it wasn't long after that I fell back to sleep. So then the next morning when I woke up, I started thinking about the fact that I had been in surgery for 6 hours when normally it only takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So when my nurse came in that morning after I woke up to check my vitals and all that, I asked her why exactly my surgery had taken so long. And she told me, she said, I haven't had a chance to go over your chart real good, but, she hadn't looked at the notes or whatever. But it wasn't long after that my surgeon's associate came in when he was making his morning round, so I talked to him about it. And the way he explained it to me is that even though on the pre-op diet that I did before my surgery, I did lose some weight, and a lot of that helps with fatty liver disease, and it shrinks the liver. And, there's just a few, and I would happen to be one of those few, that it doesn't work to shrink the liver. So, like I said, of course, I'd be one of the few that it doesn't work. So, anyway, it was a tedious thing, maneuvering around inside with that fatty liver of mine. Now, I want to say right here, too, though, that last week I had my labs drawn for my 6-month appointment that's coming up on Wednesday. And the levels that they look for that type of thing, like the fatty liver, my levels are normal, so it doesn't look like it's something to worry about. I also want to say that a lot of surgeons would take a look at that liver and close you back up and not do your surgery at all. But Dr. Love, he doesn't turn down a challenge. So I just keep thinking about how disappointed I would have been if I had woken up and they sent me right back home because I didn't get to have the surgery. Now, normally, and I again say that, I'm not one of those people that fit into that category, but most people that have this type of surgery, they get to go home the next day. And I have even heard of people going home the same day as that surgery. But, yeah, not me. I experienced so much nausea from the anesthesia, so they weren't ready to have me go home yet since that was going on. And they wanted that under control before they'd release me. So I got to spend an extra night at the Hotel Hillcrest under the care of some of the best nurses I've ever been taken care of in any of my hospital stays for various things. Every single nurse that I came into contact with after my surgery was just super nice, Now, one big thing that they want you to do after surgery is to get up and walk. And I'm going to stress here, I probably have said it before. I will probably say it again. But walking is very important after your surgery. Now, they didn't start me that night that I had first woke up. But, yeah. It was so late and I was still groggy and whatnot. But it is very important to, get up and walk around. Now, I didn't have any problem getting up and walking short distances, but doing an entire lap like they want you to do around the unit that I was in, it was a little difficult at first on the day after my surgery because of the nausea that I was having. But I gave it my best, you know. I was walking down the halls, pushing my IV thing and carrying on the little vomit bags just in case it hit while I was making my way around the area. But I do want to say that I just experienced nausea. There was no vomiting or anything like that. But, you know, each time I went for a little walk around that area, it got easier and easier. And the cool thing is, I was like really not experiencing any pain from the surgery. There was a little bit of gas pains, but the walking helps you with that also. And the reason you're so gassy after weight loss surgery and other abdominal surgeries, maybe other areas of the body too, but they pump your abdomen up so they can work around in there with some kind of gassy type thing. And so it gives them more space so that you're not all closed up, you know, them trying to work in a tight spot. But, you know, since you're up walking around, you're actually walking it out, you know. Basically, it helps you fart it out. Plus, another good thing that helps with that is stuff like gastric. But honestly, I didn't really experience a whole lot of gas pain. It was mild, I would say. Now, I don't think that, you know, like I said, I didn't experience that much, but I have heard others talk about that was probably the worst part of the surgery, you know, the gas pain. And what's weird is you can have gas pain in your shoulder from this type of thing. Who knew? That was I only experienced that one time after my surgery. It was just a little sharp, quick pain, and then it was gone. Now, I'm telling you that if you're going to have or are thinking about having weight loss surgery, get up and walk as soon as you're able to after the surgery because it does help with a lot of stuff. It can even work out some soreness that you're feeling in your abdomen. You might not be standing straight up, but, you know, it'll work some of that soreness and that gas out. All right, so my surgery, it was on a Monday morning or all day Monday afternoon. And I was finally allowed to go home the Wednesday after my surgery. So I spent 2 nights in the hospital. I was walking around really good. I wasn't in any pain. The nausea had finally subsided. And I was able to tolerate water and other fluids. Now, those are the big things that they look for, or at least with my surgeon in the hospital. You know, it's what they look for before they let you go home. So my daughter picked me up sometime that afternoon. I can't remember exactly what time it was. But we were back at her house around 5 that afternoon. And once I was home, I was on the same liquid diet that I had been on the hospital, or in the hospital. It was like water, broth, Jello, and I was just absolutely sick of Jello because it was one of the things I could have on my pre-op diet. And I've never been a big Jello person anyway. I'm even less of a Jello person now. So, yeah. But, you know, I couldn't get much in at the time, so it seemed like a struggle in those early days after surgery. I look back now because now I'm 6 months out at this point, and, you know, it's just amazing how I've went from just little sips here and there, trying to get it in on a regular basis. But now water goes down like you wouldn't believe. So, I mean, like, everything gets better. I do want to tell you that. I don't want to make it sound terrible. But anyway, the next day my daughter had to go back to work. And so I was at her house with my son-in-law, who, if I haven't told you before, he is like the most amazing person. And I couldn't have handpicked a better guy for my daughter. And he made sure I was comfortable. He was off that day, but he made sure I was comfortable on the couch. You know, he'd bring me my water or anything else I needed. But y'all, early that afternoon, I just really wanted to be in my own bed, not knocking their couch because it is pretty comfy. But you know how, like, you go anywhere and have to sleep somewhere else, you just want your bed. And that's how I was. So after I thought about it for a little while, and due to the fact that I hadn't had anything stronger than Tylenol, and I hadn't even taken much Tylenol at that point, but since I left the hospital, that was the only thing I had taken. I made the decision to drive myself to my home. Now, there's only about a 20-minute drive between my house and my daughter's house. So, I figured that just that far, I would be okay. And I was. If I had been in a lot of pain or had been on some strong, like narcotic painkillers, I wouldn't have done it. I probably would have stayed another night or gotten one of them to drive me home. But, you know, I was fine. Like, my mom always talks about how amazing I do after I have surgery, I have a very high pain tolerance. Sorry, I had to get that water. You gotta get that water in, y'all. Now, my plans were to go home and take a nice nap in my own bed, but you know what? I didn't. I didn't lay back down until I was ready to go to bed for the night. I stayed up doing some homework that was due soon. I cleaned up my kitchen and I just did normal things. Like I said, my mom, she's always been amazed at how well I do after surgery, and she was amazed this time because, gastric bypass or any of the weight loss surgeries, it's major abdominal surgery. But I think that if I had to do stuff for myself and my kids, I think that it's because I've had to do that for so long that I really didn't think that having someone else to do stuff for me was an option. And even after I had C-sections with both of my sons, I was up doing stuff around the house when I came home. Doing for myself and doing for my kids is all I know. And I'm just so terrible at asking for help. Like, I would rather just struggle and figure things out for myself than ask anybody to do anything for me. It's just, I've been that way for so long. But anyway, y'all, that's the story of my surgery. Pretty cut and dry, but I wanted to tell you guys about my experience because I had promised to. Now, one other thing I want to talk about before I end this episode is a hot topic right here in the United States. You've probably heard that there could possibly be a TikTok shutdown for Americans. And I'm hoping that it doesn't happen, but just in case it does, I have backup. I do have the Facebook page and Instagram page. And just last night, I started uploading stuff to a YouTube channel. And I'll put a link for that in the episode description too. But, I already use all of those except, like I said, YouTube just started tonight. But just in case we do get banned here in the United States, those are options to follow me if you want to listen. And if you haven't already followed me on TikTok, you really should. I'm more active on there. I have more about my day-to-day life since my surgery. I've made really, really good friends. They're just amazing people. Very supportive. Of course, there's drama. But so far, like, I just got to like 870 something followers on TikTok. But so far, the drama, I miss out on all of it. I'll see people post about, this and that one, but it hasn't, clogged up my feed. And I'm glad of that because I just don't do the drama thing. Now, like I said, all of my social accounts are in the podcast, like the episode description. So also in my description for each, it'll give the current stats, like how much weight I've lost and all that good stuff. All right, y'all. So that's all for tonight's episode, and I appreciate all your listens. Also, I want to thank you for being patient while I was having technical difficulties. That's it. So y'all come back for another episode next week, and I don't know what the topic of that will be. Y'all have a good one.